Hello, in this training I'd like to cover how you would actually do placement and structuring in both JetCoin and in ECoinPlus. And I'd like to do this because in particular both of the programs that I've mentioned in the last several days, as we've studied them further, we're less inclined to use the stacking or what I had referred to as the iceberg strategy in these two opportunities as much as we did in GladiaCoin. And let me explain why. But the main reason is that the either JC5 or E5 position, which is a half a Bitcoin in both companies, no, one Bitcoin in both companies, excuse me, um, the percentages and the time is faster, and the percentage payouts are faster. So it makes sense to do things a little bit differently, and this will also be less complicated for you guys. So in this scenario, I'm going to assume that you're joining under Grace and Grace and James in either JetCoin or ECoinPlus, and the strategy would be almost, very similar in the two. We can talk about it in a little bit more detail in our special Friday webinar on June 9 or our regular Saturday webinars after that, or in other videos, so you can ask me about it. But in this scenario, basically, what I'd like to do is imagine that you've been sponsored by us, and we're going to assume in this scenario that we're above you here, so we're global one-to-one, and we have sponsored you, and this is you, and then you either watch and check, or you ask us which would be the spillover leg, because in all businesses we're sponsoring regularly, and I'll give you a scenario where you're not getting sponsorship. I mean spillover. That's not going to be the case really with Grace and ourselves, but it can be if you're not getting sponsored by us and you're just watching this video. You can sometimes find that you've been sponsored by someone who maybe is not, a really active or massive sponsor like we are, and where your strategy should be a little bit different. But in this scenario, what I'm going to recommend is you set your main account, and your main account could be a fairly big one. So before we had suggested, that this would be like a E2 or a GC2. In GladiaCoin, it was called an S2, a Spartacus 2, and that could be appropriate. Again, it just depends on the size. So I'm going to give two examples here. So let's imagine that you have two Bitcoin. Uh, in GladiaCoin, if you had two Bitcoin, we would have said you take your position here, make this an S2, Spartacus 2. You would put an S2 over here, and then you would start an iceberg over here, and you would build 1, and then 2, and then 4, and then 8, and you would build an iceberg. And that was the strategy, to take advantage of the fact that the percentages there were 6%, but you, by stacking, you could get multiple layers, and you can still do that. But let me explain what's a little bit different about this business. Now, if you still have just like 0.3 total, then you could just do, in all cases, we're going to recommend you put in your main position and then qualify yourself for binary by putting 1 on your outside, which would be the spillover leg, and this will continue sponsoring, and there would be spillover down this way. And this would be what we call your inside leg, or some people call it a pay leg. And this would be this is your responsibility to build this one. But in the scenario where you're a passive investor, passive, I stress, so you're not going to be doing any recruiting, or you're maybe going to do a little bit of recruiting. So there might be 1 or 2 people in here, but you don't have a expectation you're going to recruit a lot, or you don't think you are. Although, you very well could, once you find out how much you're earning, share it with people, and people could join you, but be realistic with yourself. So if that's you and you've got 2 Bitcoin, we would suggest maybe making it 2.1, and you could put this like in a JetCoin. It would be a JC5, which has a very high percentage and a very quick turnaround, or in ECoin, it's an E5. They're both the same amount. They're 1 Bitcoin. So you could put a 1 Bitcoin here. You would put on the spillover leg, you'd put a 0.1. Okay, 0.1. And that's just to qualify you for binary, but you don't need to make this a very large amount. And then on the inside of yourself, you would put your remaining balance. So if you had 2.1, for example, you put 1 here, 0.1 here, so a GC2 or an E2. This would be a GC5 or an E5, and you would put your remaining balance over here. Now, why would you do that? Well, the reason is because with this structure, if you're under an active recruiter like us, so you can do this with us. If you're not being sponsored by us, then check with your sponsor whether they are an active recruiter. But why? And that is, in 1, 2, 3, 4 days, however long it takes, depending on how big this account is, there will be spillover and there will be additional volume. And in the binary, you get paid for the lesser of your left and right. So you put a position in here, and then you have this one. On the first day, you'll get paid on the difference here, but in the second, third, and fourth day, however big this account is, you'll get paid binary commission here because of this account, even if you only have 1 account. Let's use the example. You put a GC5 here, and put another GC5 over here, and a GC, JC, I should say, JC. I'm talking about JetCoin, and it would be an E, so it'd be an E5, an E5, and an E2 here in ECoinPlus, and it'd be the same numbering. It would be a JC5, a JC5, and a JC2 here. And the reason for being it imbalanced is to take advantage of the spillover. So you would be able to qualify for binary commissions in this top position, your main position, because of the spillover you would get from us or from an active sponsor if it's not us, if it's an active sponsor. Okay? So if this was a GC5 or an E5 on this build position, then you could get that binary because you will get spillover and you'll qualify for binary on the spillover. So your own position, this build, what we call the build position, would eventually become your lesser leg. On the first day, it will be your bigger one probably, because perhaps there won't be 1 Bitcoin of spillover on the first day. So I don't want to get too complicated, but it could be that the binary would be paid on this 0.1 in the first day, depending on when you signed up and how much spillover there is on that one day. And then the binary would be paying from over here on subsequent days. So that's if you're passive with an active sponsor. Okay, that's one scenario. You are passive with an active sponsor. All right, if you're passive and you're not signing up under us, so you're with an inactive or passive sponsor, then you would want to balance this. So you qualify your left and your right, and this would be your main account, and you could do, you'd want to make these equal. If there's never going to be any spillover here, you want to take advantage of it yourself. So your main account here, and you might put half Bitcoin accounts here and here, and this would be a full Bitcoin account here. So in that scenario, this would be a JC5 or an E5 in either of the two companies. These would be JC4 or E4 and JC4 or E4. That's the scenario if you are passive and you have a passive or not experienced, unlikely to really give you a lot of spillover scenario. Okay, so that's a different scenario. Now, if you're a builder and you have a sponsor, a little bit similar. If you're a builder, if you're getting sponsored from, if you're a builder and you're sponsored by a builder such as Grace and ourselves, then it looks very similar, except you're going to be building on this side. So you look at your total investment, but you would want this position, your main position, this is one you would sponsor with, and you would just immediately place one, a JC2, no more than that, or an E2, no more than that, in the spillover leg, just to qualify yourself for binary. Doesn't matter where it goes. There might be positions in here. It depends on how fast you act. But the faster you act, the higher this one will be. But basically, you're just using this to qualify for binary. So this would be your position here, and you're going to build down this way on your what's called inside or pay leg. And again, if you're under an active sponsor, then you could make this position here a nice one to give yourself a first day payday. So, but in this scenario, you would want to make this account basically probably as big as you can get it, because you're gonna use this one, and after you've got your two positions set here, you could use this for recruiting and set your position to pay to right side only. Okay, so you would build that pass this way, so your positions would fall here and here and here afterwards, and then your team would build on the inside of those. All right, so that would be if you've got an active sponsor. Now, if you've got an inactive sponsor but you're active, then you're not going to get spillover here, right? So in that scenario, this is the sponsor leg, but you might never get spillover. So you're going to have to build both sides of your binary. If you've found an inactive sponsor, then you just set your binary and you watch your volume left and right, and whichever one is the least, you will get paid on every day for new volume. And so this will grow on this side, this will grow on this side, and you will continue to build. So those are sort of the different scenarios. But what's different about these two companies is the binary commissions in both of them are higher, and the payouts for the big positions are shorter than what we had in GladiaCoin. So this is an update to you to give you updated strategy on what works best with these two companies. The strategies are a little bit different, but basically the same. So if you've got if you're a recruiter, get with us about the strategy. If you're passive and you've got, 1.5 or 2 or 5 or 10 Bitcoin, then get with me about the strategy. We can structure this to you. If you get a larger group, larger sized investment, you still can do a little iceberg over here in some cases, and we could really help you to max that out. So that structure still works, where you build and you get binary commissions on yourself. But again, it just depends on the scenario, and it's not true in all cases, because the sizes of the accounts, some of these guys are, they're cycling in 60, 50, 40 days. So it makes a big difference, and those percentages, daily percentages, then you want to stay in the range of those higher accounts and make that speed of the money work for you. Okay, so I hope that's fairly clear. If not, ask questions below on YouTube, or ask us personal questions about it. We'll be happy to answer those, okay? All right, thanks very much for watching, and as always, like, comment, share. We appreciate your subscribing, and we'll be glad to work with you in these two businesses as well. So take action on them and join if you'd like to, and we'll be happy to work with you. Thank you again, and we'll talk to you on the next video. Bye-bye.